So once again, welcome to our first Q&A webinar for our Open Call 3 Innovate. Just a few notes before we start. So we kindly ask you to have your microphones and videos turned off during the presentations. If you want, you can rename yourself with your first name and entity you represent, SME in this case. And in this way, it will be easier to identify you during the Q&A. There will be also a specific slot for the Q&A, so for you to pose your questions and doubts to our HUBCAP team. And if you wish to have a question, you can raise your hand during the slot dedicated to the Q&A. Or if you don't have this feature, you can always type your question in the chat. And during the Q&A, we will go into all the questions. The agenda for today, first we will start by presenting the HUBCAP project, and this presentation will be held by our colleague Hugo Daniel Macedo from Aarhus University, which is the HUBCAP project coordinator. Then we will move forward to the HUBCAP Open Call 3 Innovate, presented by me, Catarina Reis from HUBCAP, which is the manager of the funding opportunities for SMEs, so the Open Call funding. And we will finalize the presentations with the tips and lessons learned for a successful application that will be presented by our colleague Ken Pierce from Newcastle University. And then we will conclude the webinar with a Q&A session. So now I will pass the word to my colleague, Hugo.
Welcome, everybody. I'm here to set the scene about like kind of the HUBCAP project and the concepts that like kind of we deal with, and like kind of somehow open up the Q&A session for today. First and foremost, thank you for having come. The HUBCAP consortium consists of 17 partners. We come from 10 countries. Now we have a small overlay where the organizing partner is Aarhus University, where I'm based in Denmark. And there's a network of digital innovation hubs, registered EU digital innovation hubs. So Newcastle University in the UK, KTH in Sweden, Fortis in Germany, Fondazione Bruno Kessler and Politecnico Milano in Italy, a virtual vehicle in Austria, and University Lucien Blaga in Romania. So these can be your contact points, direct contact points, if you live in one such countries. So the project has open calls. So today we're talking about one. These are led and organized by HUBCAP, where Katerina comes from. And we have also on board a set of SMEs that tested our platform. So they are providers of model-based technology. And the platform that they tested is developed by another partner in Italy that is engineering software developing company. So in the next slide, we see here like the overall aspect of this project. So in a nutshell, in a slide. So basically, we are funded by the European Commission. We have this innovation action. The project lasts until December 2022. And our goal is indeed to provide a one-stop shop for European SMEs that want to join this cyber physical systems revolution using model-based design techniques. So basically, if you have cyber physical systems in your portfolio and you want to adopt model-based design, you want to extend like kind of the model-based design that you may be using already, you can join us and join our network. And we indeed intend to lower the barriers for early adopters or for you if you want to move forward. So we come from several places here, all displayed in the map. In red, the digital innovation hubs. You can contact them like kind of as your first point of contact. and we have all the other partners also listed. But I think we could go directly for the next slide, where we start to define a bit the scope in an abstract sense. So what we mean by cyber physical systems and its challenge. So for us, a cyber physical system is just any system where computation interacts or in fact orchestrates a physical process. So in these pictures, we just depict like kind of typical robotic systems, or for instance, aircraft control systems. But it could be something as easy as a door opener that is smart enough to recognize users. Uh, Anything that indeed could be in your portfolio if you were a CPS developer and you want to make smart. And we adopt the architecture proposed by Lee et al. In 2015, because it defines this layered or this leveled approach to smartness in terms of implementing your cyber physical system. So it's easy, or like nowadays is quite common for a cyber physical system to come with some kind of connection to some network, so some kind of plug and play functionality. Then from the data that you connect, you pass to a next level, indeed, where you start to extract information from just like kind of the data that is deployed or like kind of uploaded from your devices to some platform. Then we start to have the cyber level, and here, indeed, if you want a digital twin, you either have a digital model, or if you want it, you are planning on building such, where you operate at the same time. Your model operates or mimics the physical asset, the physical cyber physical system, and indeed, like kind of, you can go upper in this pyramid or in these levels, such that your system becomes autonomous, it self-actualizes, etc., etc. But yeah, the main point is that you can have hardware or you can have cyber physical systems, but they need to at some point, if you want to make it really smart, model-based design is in the play for you. So you need to tackle it at some point. So this is cyber physical systems and its challenge. Maybe now we could talk about a bit of what we consider what it is model-based design. So probably most of you know, but indeed, if not, there's two worlds, or there's this vision of two worlds when you have a system, at least from our point of view. So you either have the really physical asset. So in this case, a water treatment plant is in the figures on the left. And for instance, in this physical process, water traverses several tanks, and your cyber physical system or the computation is just like kind of opening, closing valves and doing all the complex things that require that treatment. But that's all concrete physical realizations of the system. So it's the system itself. And then there's the model counterpart, which is in general, it could be either like kind of software or like kind of models in a specification language. It could be 3D animations of what the process is, how the process is going on. It could be block diagrams, bond graphs, you name it, whatever like kind of modeling that you may think of is something that we would be interested in if this model is executable. So definitely there's models in our world that like kind of, if it does not run on top of a platform or a computer, and you cannot inspect it or visualize it, is something that like kind of our platform would not be able to feature. So so for instance, an example of that would be like kind of paper blueprints of a system. Not sure if anybody does that yet, yeah, today, but maybe they're still. Without diverging, so, well, if these models run in a computer, they need or usually are associated with tools. So normally, like kind of there's general purpose tools where you build models on top of those tools. And these are like kind of also what HUBCAP wants to feature. If we want to facilitate the adoption of model-based design, we want that people that provide tools for model-based design to deploy their tools in our platform in an easy, try me now fashion, such that like kind of the adopters or potential adopters can experiment with and indeed find partners for their projects. So these are what we are interested in terms of HUBCAP assets. So for Innovate calls, you can use either assets that are in our platform, or you can bring a new asset in your consortia. So have this in mind. In parallel, we will also have a call to attract assets. So if you know anybody that would be interested in deploying an asset, a model, or a tool in our platform, please be so kind and refer this project to them. So yeah, maybe in the next slide, I'll talk a bit about what's the Digital Innovation Hub's network feature of the project. So the several partners, as I tried to hint before, have this goal of routing expertise, routing contacts, putting SMEs in your local network in contact with other SMEs to develop cyber physical systems projects and access to funding, access to skills and training. Basically, we try to build this innovation ecosystem, and we are in contact with other digital innovation hubs that are not part of the project, and we are interested in having those as well. So we are trying to make this one-stop shop reality. So in the next slide, I show a depiction of the collaboration platform. So the platform that HUBCAP developed, and the platform where if you have models or tools, your models and tools will be featured on, is a web-based platform, so a typical web portal, where you can have a listing or the metadata about the available models, available tools. And if we move to the next slide, we see that indeed there's a lot of focus in having the models and tools catalog, where you can check about, is this a tool or model something that interests me? And but it's not only the metadata. So the two blue bars are more like kind of, you can search for a model, or you can be informed about like kind of what's this model about, or this tool about, what's its features. But indeed, there's an extra level in our platform that is this sandbox, that basically it's a run environment where like kind of users can just push button and try a tool. So we will give you a bit more details about that, but it's just like kind of a cloud-based deployment of tools that want to be featured and models that want to be featured in our platform. So in the next slide, I think I give a bit more of the overview of the sandbox itself. So when you pick a model and a tool in the catalog, you will be shown a shopping cart. So we want it as easy as buying some products in Amazon, for instance. So for instance, here the depiction of a tool, or in fact two tools and a model that are in the shopping cart. If we launch it, then the portal will redirect the user to the virtual desktop of a virtual machine that has the tool ready to be interacted with. And in addition to just like kind of featuring tools or having the whole software environment ready to run a tool and a model in our platform, we also have this collaboration emphasis, or collaboration features, where an owner of a sandbox, so you as a tool provider and you own a sandbox, you can invite guests, and these guests can jointly take over control of the GUI and manipulate the model while you're somehow like kind of maybe discussing potential projects, or whether this model fits, or like kind of you're just providing training to one of your potential customers. Here's a bit of the architecture. So if you're interested in deploying such a tool or model in our platform, well, in a nutshell, it's a usual cloud provider architecture. So we just have like kind of, we deploy a set of virtual machines as you need. On top of those, you can install the dependencies for your tool, and like kind of you can have your models as data in a network file system. All these virtual machines will be like kind of sandboxed in a small network provided by a VLAN, and you can just think of this as a tight development environment where you as a Sandbox owner can like kind of showcase your products, or well, the idea would be eventually you could just deploy your tool as a pay-per-use or pay as you go, like kind of, instead of just providing a license to a user, he could just like kind of pay as for the time used in your Sandbox. But these are all, well, our research goals. So at the same time that we have our own research goals, and we try to feature or build a platform that is suitable for to support this one-stop shop and to foster adoption of model-based design by cyber-physical systems developers. We also have our current program. Can we go for the next slide, Katerina? Yeah, so I have a demo here. Is it playable? Yeah, so it's just a final demo before we go for the OpenCall 3 details. So here a user is just selecting a tool, starting a Sandbox with that tool. This is one of the adopter SMEs, seed SMEs, so the SMEs that are in the consortium that tested the concept before we open it to OpenCall users. And here's 20SIM. Control Labs did this participation, or it was one of their tasks. So like they open one of the models they have in their portfolio, and they showcase a bit of the experiment of their tool running online. So yeah, please check our YouTube channel. A lot of the other experiments are there. Maybe you can find some like kind of something that is similar to what you have in your portfolio. So immediately you could follow up probably the same methodology that was followed by that case. I think this is it. So we can move to the next slide. Yeah. So important it is, well, so here we could just go to the next slide, Katerina, please. So yeah, so this is the process for the deployment of your tools or models in the platform. So it's a streamlined process. So you bring us or we ask you for the details, who will be the user. There will be a mandatory workshop that this user has to participate in. But then you get access to the platform, and I think yeah, you can start kind of typing in the metadata of your platform, of your tool and or model, and then like kind of we will be in touch, and eventually we hope that some of you can have as much fun deploying your assets in the platform as we had like kind of deploying our own or building the platform itself. So I think I'm ready for a wrap up, if memory doesn't fail me, indeed. So in short, this is HUBCAP. So we have this network of digital innovation hubs. We want to be this one-stop shop. We want to encourage and foster model-based design. We thank all the seed SMEs for trying out the platform, all the OpenCall 1 winners as well. And yeah, we are looking forward to have you on board and help you find good matches to define consortia to apply to OpenCall 3 we're featuring now. And I think Katerina will be now taking the lead and giving we all the details about on how to apply to OpenCall 3 Innovate.
Thank you so much, Hugo, for your presentation. So now I will briefly present the Call 3 Innovate, and here we will be presenting the timeline, how you should participate, some tips about the application form, the evaluation process, and the evaluation criteria. So just to summarize what the HUBCAP program, so HUBCAP has a 3.2 million equity-free fund for SMEs and mid-caps to experiment and innovate with digital technologies. And this we mean to experiment and innovate with model-based design tools for cyber-physical systems. So we have three different types of open calls. We have the pool calls, which is individual application. And here it's a mini grant for the provider SMEs to integrate their assets in the HUBCAP platform. Then we have the experiment calls, and we are talking about a two SMEs consortium where the adopter SME and the provider SME will together experiment with the model-based design tools for their cyber-physical systems. And we are talking about a funding between 30K and 75K. And finally, our Innovate call, which can be composed by a 2 or 3 SMEs consortium. And we will now proceed with the full presentation of the Innovate call. So we are currently accepting applications for the call Innovate. We will conclude, so the open call closes on 30th of June at 5 p.m. Brussels time. Then we will have a 2-month period of evaluation and selection. And here I would like to just provide a note that it is possible that the evaluation and selection timeline will be postponed to September due to the vacation periods in most countries in Europe. So August, most likely, everyone will be out on vacation. So we will be providing the final results in mid-September. So we will have a kind of a little bit postponed into starting all the projects that will be selected through our Innovate call. Nonetheless, as you can see, it's divided in 3 main phases: design, develop, and operate. And it will be so the Innovate projects will be running until October 2022. So the funding scheme. There's a particularity to the Innovate call, which is there's a maximum funding allocated to an individual SME, which is 1,000 euros. And this is taking not only the funding or the budget you are applying for the call Innovate 3, but also any other open calls from the ICT innovation for manufacturer SMEs, in case you have applied before, or Smart Anything Everywhere initiative projects. So in total, these 3 initiatives, you cannot exceed the 1,000 funding, 1,000 euros for funding. And this will, of course, will be checked by our HUBCAP consortium. So the Innovate call will fund the consortium to 2 to 3 SMEs, and you can check the definition of SMEs with the European Commission recommendation sites. And we are looking at consortiums with at least 1 adopter SME and at least one provider SME to innovate with model-based design tools and models with the goal to create new cyber-physical technologies, solutions, and/or products. So the consortium will receive a funding up to 200,000 K, and we will select 10 Innovate projects that will have 12 months to develop and conclude their project ideas. And these 12 months are divided in 3 main phases. So the first 2 months are allocated to the design phase. The following 8 months are allocated to the develop and operate phase. And finally, the final 2 months will be allocated to the access phase. And you can find more detailed information about each specific phase in our guidelines for applicants. Based on the European Commission rules, HUBCAP project will only fund 70% of the total costs involved by the SME. So only 70% of the total costs that you provide in your budget when you are applying to the Innovate call. At the end of each phase, the selected consortium will have to deliver a report or a deliverable. And the payments corresponding to each phase are associated with the positive assessment of each report delivered, and payments and of course, you have payments corresponding to each phase. And for phase 1, at the end of the 2 months, you will have a payment corresponding to 20% of your project budget. At phase 2, at the end of phase 2, you will have a payment corresponding to 60% of your project budget. And finally, the remaining 20% at the end when you conclude your project implementation or action. After each project review and successful evaluation of each report, its costs will become eligible. Please note that reports that are not accepted will be given a period of 3 days for phase 1 and 3, and 1 week for phase 2 to improve, after which they will be re-evaluated. In case a report assessment is once more unsatisfactory, the cost associated to the report will be revised and will be automatically reduced from your contract, so the subgrant agreement. Of course, you have a really detailed explanation and process within the guidelines of applicants, and you can also directly contact us if you have any questions and doubts respecting this point. But also, we would like to say that the projects will have specific teams composed by people from our digital innovation hubs that will provide you support, not only technical, but also business support. So we will work together for your successful project implementation and to minimize any risks that may be occur. And of course, we will also provide support and mentoring for each report. So in the end, we will work together for a 100% successful. How can you participate? All the applications are submitted through the F6S platform. So if you need to enroll your SME, if not already within the F6S platform, and then access the Call3 Innovate application page and application form, and you can submit your project proposal through the application form. We strongly recommend not to wait until the last minute to submit your proposal. You have still 1 month and a half, so take time and read the application questions carefully. And if you have any questions, again, feel free to directly contact us, but take time because it's a complex application, and you don't wait until the last minute because something can go wrong. And well, from previous experience, then the system may fail, etc. So it's our recommendation. English is the official language, and submissions done in other language will not be considered eligible for evaluation. Each consortium can only submit 1 proposal per open call. So in case you submit more than 1 proposal, only the last one received will be considered for evaluation, and the others will be automatically excluded. Be concrete and concise. So questions have character limitations. So examine all the open call documents that have all the information before you submit your application. As per UK companies, at the time of the project successful selection, UK was an European associated country, so UK SMEs or applicants in this case are eligible to apply. The application form. Of course, HUBCAP is GDPR compliant, so we will request the minimum information needed to deliver the evaluation procedure, and a summary of the proposals and participants' information will be shared with the Commission, with the HUBCAP consortium, and with the pool of external evaluators that will be assessing the projects, the project's application received through the Innovate call. There are a few documents that are mandatory to upload along with the application form, and these are the list of the documents that are requested. So you have Annex 4, the Declaration of Honor, and Annex 5, SME declaration. And these two documents, they need to be uploaded by each member of the consortium. Then you have the Annex 6, so your consortium declaration of honor, that needs to be properly filled and signed by all the members of the consortium. And then you have the ATIC self-assessment and the table of costs, where you justify your budget. Again, go through all the questions in both annexes and make sure you have filled in all the required information, such as signatures, checking box, tables, among others. Other means of communication, email, are not accepted. So in case you cannot submit through the application form, through the F6S platform, any of these documents, and you send this by email, after the open call is closed, we will not accept these documents. And in case you miss something, some of the documents, your proposal will not be eligible for evaluation. And finally, we have an additional annex. So in case you are partnering with the new provider SME who is not yet part of the HUBCAP ecosystem, you should also submit Annex 3.1 corresponding to the new asset description. And here the provider SME or the provider's SMEs need to describe their assets which will be subject to an additional suitability check. And yes, so this is the recommendations that we have for the application, also application form process. So how is regarding the evaluation process, how this will be occurring or performed? You will submit your proposals to the application form through F6S platform, and once the open call is closed, all received proposals will be checked for eligibility. In case an application is considered not eligible, it will receive an email explaining, so a rejection letter or not eligibility letter, explaining the reasons why it wasn't considered for evaluation. After the proposal's eligibility check, a remote evaluation will take place. And it will be held by a pool of external evaluators. Okay, sorry. And once the remote evaluation is concluded, proposals will be ranked based on an overall scoring, and the top ranked projects or proposals in this case will be invited to interview with external evaluators. The proposals that will not be invited to the interview will be notified that they have not qualified. So for the interviews, you will have a threshold, and we will select the top rank for the interviews. And at the end of the interviews, 10 projects will be selected, and 5 others will remain in the reserve list in case the selected project fails to enter the HUBCAP phase 1, the design. And for the selected consortium or for the selected project, you will receive an acceptance in mail. All applicants will be informed of the evaluation results once it's concluded, and all the proposals will receive an acceptance or rejection letter together with an anonymized version of their proposal evaluation summary report. If you're not proceed to the interviews, if you had been doing the remote evaluation and the interviews, you will receive a consensus evaluation report with both scorings. The evaluation criteria. So for the external evaluation, you have a list of we will present the list of the evaluation criteria, but it will be held remotely within the F6S platform. The evaluation will be conducted by a pool of external evaluation board with expertise in model-based design, cyber-physical technologies, and business development. And each project proposal will be assessed by 2 external evaluators that will provide scoring and comment for each proposal, taking into consideration each criteria. All project proposals reach a minimal threshold of 5 in each category in order to be considered for selection. And if you are on the top ranked consortium to proceed for the online interviews, the goal of the interviews is to go into details in what it refers for a concept and innovativeness, team engagement and capacity and willingness to exploit the project proposal's results. So this will be the focus of the interviews. And the interviews will be carried out by 2 external evaluators. In principle, the same that have assessed the project proposals before, and 1 HUBCAP member as moderator of the interview. Please note that any score from 1 to 2 on any of the criteria disqualifies the overall proposal. And now here is the list of the remote evaluation criteria. So you will be we will be evaluating the alignment of your project proposal, the excellency, the impact, value, and implementation and team capacity. I will not go into further details because all this information is within the guidelines for applicants. Scorings will be provided by 1 to 10, and in the end, it will be an average of the scorings provided by the 2 experts that are assessing the project proposals. For the online interviews criteria here, as I said before, we will be evaluating the concept and technology, your business development, and in the end, the exploitation. So again, you have all this information in more detail in the guidelines for applicants, and the scoring for the online interviews will be also provided by 1 to 10. And in the end, if you are one of the consortium that went to the remote evaluation and afterwards the interviews, your final scoring will be an average between the 2 evaluation processes. So this is everything from my side. If you have any questions, feel free to post them during the Q&A slot. And I will now pass the word to our colleague, Ken. So Ken, if you could request control.
Let me have a go.
Okay, I just approve it. So now you will be able to change the slides.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Katerina, and also Hugo for those great introduction and a lot of detail there about the project and the call. As Katerina was saying, that's all in the guidelines for documents, also up on the web, and you have a chance to ask questions after my little bit here. I'm going to take a step back a little bit from the detail and talk a bit more about some tips and lessons learned from previous application funding calls that we've run to help you in your preparation for submission. Oh, sorry. Just work out how I scroll. There we go. Okay, my mouse is a bit sensitive. Okay, yeah, there we go. So I think one thing we had in the past was model-based design. Some people are very aware of it. It was a bit opaque to some people. So we've certainly had proposals that were a little out of scope, excellent ideas within their own domains, but just so we're all on the same page, we see model-based design as sort of a method of addressing design complexity using some form of model, typically represented on a computer in some way. Model-based design prescribes the use of models through the development process, representing structure of the potential system, behaviors, and then providing this machine-assisted analysis of properties. So that might be things like static analysis, model checking, simulation, model-based safety analyses. The use of model-based design and why HUBCAP is promoting it is that it's able to reduce complexity of designs, ensure quality of systems by enabling rigorous analysis of properties, and reducing cost of development by detecting issues in early phases of development. We think this is particularly important for cyber-physical systems where we have fast-moving world changing requirements, having to react to things, and also the complexity of integrating software, hardware, networking, and humans. So we really think model-based design can help there. And that's what the calls are about, are getting model-based design out to more SMEs so they're able to improve their products and their offers. So you'll possibly hear us talk about assets. Anytime we talk about an asset, we're thinking of a model-based design asset. So something that enables development of cyber-physical systems through model-based design. And we typically break these down into two types. So tool assets, so that's pieces of software, or model assets. What's the difference here? Tool assets are generally a piece of software that allows the creation or analysis of some model. Popular examples include MATLAB, Modelica, Enterprise Architect. But we're looking for SMEs as providers who have their own software that can supplement or do better than these sort of big names, generally by having quite a sort of specific piece of software that can really help do some modeling in a specific domain. And that's generally the type of provider that we've been able to meet through HUBCAP. We also have the notion of a model asset. So it might not be that your SME produces a tool that lets other people do modeling, but you might have models of your own built in some other tool or software that allows you to share your designs or components through modeling with other SMEs. So it's also possible that providers can provide model assets that allow tools to be, allow new products to be created. For example, you might be a producer of a certain component. By having a model of that, prospective clients are able to take that model into their model-based design process and to use analysis to check if it makes sense to go further or to look for design problems that might arise by bringing these things together, so in terms of integration. So this brings us more specifically onto an Innovate project. So some of you might be aware of our other calls as well. So we closed our call to experiments call a couple of months ago, and those projects will be starting soon. And there's another one later in the year, plus this rolling call one, which is a much smaller calls. So an Innovate project, call 3 supports consortia of 2 or 3 SMEs. So it's potentially bigger than an experiment to develop innovative new products, cyber physical products using model-based design techniques. So over and above our experiment call, which had less of an onus on a brand new output, it's more about experimentation. Innovate, we're really looking for innovations in the outputs. Small typo here, at least one SME should be an asset provider, a model-based design asset provider, and at least one should be an MBD user. So it could be a consortium of 2, so you've got a provider and a user. All the other cases I've got here are a couple of providers and 1 user, or 1 provider and 2 users. So this is all the potential combinations. It's really down to you as a partner in a potential consortium to present a case for why the certain makeup makes sense. And that's all part of the application that Katerina was talking about. Just a reminder that if the asset provider is new to HUBCAP, there's an additional annex just so we can check that it fits our case of model-based design. It's a fairly low effort thing to fill in, and it just makes sure that we're accepting things that fit within the remit of HUBCAP. So if you're an SME coming in with a new asset provider, there's an extra little step to try and integrate that onto the platform, add details there, and ideally get it running in the sandbox in some form. So that might be a demo, that might be more full access depending on the licensing and things like that. Oh, I've got an extra slide there. So what might an Innovate project look like? So they should be really driven by a kind of a business opportunity. So it's about innovating to develop something new. So it should also make use of model-based design for the developments. So that's our two big checkboxes. A couple of examples here I've got, thinking about a project might bring together two SMEs to develop a new product. So maybe by integrating what they've got already, they can come up with a new idea. And there might be then a third SME providing a model-based design tool that sort of facilitates this collaboration by building models and being able to facilitate the co-design. So that's an idea of a two-user, one provider consortium. Sorry. Another project might be allowing an SME to develop a new product, but maybe they need two different model-based design software. Maybe one of them supports them earlier in the phases and one of them later in testing, for example. So really doing the full design cycle. So that's an idea of a project where there's a couple of providers and one user. Or then, of course, there's one provider, one user, where a new product is built using that model-based design tool. But there are likely to be other combinations that I haven't thought about here. And it's really up to the business needs and the opportunities that you see when meeting other SMEs to pitch those ideas and explain those through your applications. So that's a general overview there. Just a couple more slides from me on some lessons learned previously. So I think working in a university, this is something I tell students a lot, is to read the exam question. So please do read the guideline for applicants carefully. All the relevant information there is about the scope and objectives, as well as guidelines for a successful application, are all included there. As Katerina mentioned, our contract with the Commission requires us to have any SMEs also complying with confidentiality and no conflict of interest clauses regarding the application received in the scope of the programme. So do be aware of that. And again, engage with us and ask questions. The fact that you're here listening is a really good start. So those of us who get in touch via email or through the F6S pipeline are much more likely to create a good application by avoiding misunderstandings that can waste effort. So we can certainly answer all your questions here today or after this through the various channels mentioned there. Another little advert to say is that we have a matchmaking event next week. So the plan here is that it'll start off a little bit like today with a short summary of the project for anyone who wasn't able to make it today. But then really it's over to you to pitch your SME in 1 minute as a potential partner. So you'll then hear from other SMEs who are interested in the call. And in the second half, it's a bit of a longer event than today. So in the second half, we're going to have a sort of matchmaking event. So once you've heard SMEs, you can make notes of their names. And then we'll be using an online platform to allow you to talk more freely to those and start building up ideas and getting consortia together. So there's one next week. There's a link there. Slides will be available afterwards. We can also put a link in the chat as well. There will be a second event closer to the there's a second Q&A and there's a second matchmaking event. So there will be a couple of opportunities to meet people, but I'd certainly encourage you to come along and pitch your SME and hear from other partners and try and build up some consortia, because the earlier you find a consortium, the longer you've got to write a good application and ask questions. So finally, just a few important links. So the F6S platform with a Q&A forum is available there. There's a info at HUBCAP. That's a generic email that comes to us, and we'll try and either answer directly or redirect you if you have questions that are sort of more technical or more legal. We'll pass you on. The application form, again, is through F6S. The guidelines, including downloadable versions of the Annexes are available on the HUBCAP website. There's also an FAQ there that tries to answer some common questions. And we have a newsletter where you can get through the website footer. There is also a sign-up page if you're interested. I can let you know that one as well. I think that's probably me. Time to hand back to Katerina. Give up remote control. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Ken. I think now I have the control. So thank you so much, Ugo and Ken, for the presentations. And now we can move forward to the Q&A session. So now is the time to raise your hands or write your questions in the chat so that we can answer everything. So let me see if we have a question already. Okay, so we have a question from Shangdi Yang, and he's asking about what's the expertise of the external reviewers. So we will have the selection of the external reviewers or evaluators. We will have a call for expression of interest where we will ask them their CVs, their previous experience, always related to the model-based design and cyber-physical domains and thematics. And we have an internal committee composed by people from the digital innovation hubs from the HUBCAP consortium. So it's our open call management board, is like we call ourselves, which will analyze the CVs received and rank the external evaluators. So what's the expertise of the external reviewers? I don't know how to answer this precisely, but we have a procedure that is really specific, and we will select the most suitable external reviewers for assessing the project proposals. I don't know, Shangli, if these are your question. Mostly. You can unmute yourself and talk to us. I think it's easier.
Okay. Hi, everybody.
Hi, hello.
Thanks for asking. And so my question is more like the reviewers are the industrial experts. Like I guess the innovation ideas probably across many different industries.
I could try speaking to that.
Yes, they will.
Sorry, shall I
Go
say
ahead,
something?
Ken.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, so obviously there are kind of two aspects. There's the model-based design aspect, since that's an important part of our remit. So we're generally looking for a subset of the reviewers will be model-based design experts, but we also do recruit for more innovation experts as well. And then we try to make sure that there's a good spread of both model-based design expertise, industrial expertise, and also reviewing expertise. So that's another criteria that people who are familiar with reviewing EU proposals, for example, we try and ensure as much as possible, and I think we did this in our previous round with experiment, that we have an expert panel with a really good coverage of model-based design, innovation, and reviewing in general.
Yeah. Okay, I see, Ken. Yeah. Maybe just related to that, when you just now mentioned about like the important part, of course, is the model-based design. But in terms of the formation on the two SMEs or three SMEs, for the user SME, what's your expectation of their level of model-based design expertise?
So I would say they don't have to have any training. I mean, one of the main remits of HUBCAP is to get model-based design out to more SMEs who aren't using it already. Mm-hmm. So I think certainly it's definitely not a requirement that they've already used it, and we'd like to avoid just giving money out to the usual suspects who have sort of been more familiar with that. So definitely, if an experiment or an Innovate project is sort of upskilling an SME with model-based design, then I think that would be a tick in the box.
Yeah.
But it's also not necessarily that they're complete rookies. So the main thing is that the provided tech, so from the provider, is new, and that's a new kind of collaboration or new innovation there on that side.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I do have other questions, but I guess maybe to make time for other people to ask, then I can ask later. Thanks, Ken.
I think you can. I think you can pose another question. I don't see other questions on the chat. I know that Andrew raised a hand, but I don't see it anymore. So if you can conclude your questions, and then I will pass the word to Andrew.
So there are several like seed SMEs versus other tool assets providers. What's the difference if, say, I as a user SME to engage with these two types of providers?
Yeah, good question. So the seed SMEs are partners in the HUBCAP project in the EU sense that they receive funding from the Commission to be part of the project. The rules mean that they cannot receive any further funding. So it's slightly more complicated if they want to be, or if there's SMEs want to bring them into a consortium, they can't receive direct funding. However, they may be willing to offer some time, sort of pro rata, sort of, do I mean pro rata? Possibly don't mean pro rata. I mean, they might be willing to sort of commit some of their own time to help support SMEs if they wanted to use one of their tools. But it's not the case that you could have a single SME applying just to use a seed SME product, because that wouldn't meet the criteria of the consortium.
I see.
Requiring 2 to 3. But
yeah,
I think we could probably want to get in touch with us about the specifics so that we could make sure that the seed SME was happy to provide any support. Because I think that what we wouldn't want to do is fund something that required one of those tools, and then we discover that the seed SME doesn't have the time to help, and then that might be a bit of a jeopardy. But if there was a consortium coming in where it would be, there's a clear case for them to make use of a seed SME in addition to what they're already doing, we can definitely discuss that, but certainly something to discuss before submission, just to make sure the logistics are worked out.
Okay, yeah, that's very clear. One last one is the core tool experiment has already started, right? I'm just wondering.
Call 2. Yes, so call 2.1, we just have our first batch of open call winners or selected groups of SMEs, and they will start their experiments in June. And we will have the second open call, so experiment calls, it's 2 cutoffs. So we will have call 2.2 starting or launching in November this year.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, what I ask is that maybe you can share some, let's say, tips from this, because I assume the experiment versus Innovate, there are some similarities. Just in case you have already acquired some new let's say tips or.
So the difference between the two open call scopes is that experiment calls, the main goal is to allow less digital adopters, SMEs, to adopt model-based design and through a provider SME and improve their cyber-physical systems. So, and they will experiment with this. As per the Innovate projects, we are looking for a new and innovative project idea. So it's not an experiment, it's a project. So you will have time to design and prepare. Then you have 8 months to develop and implement your project idea. And in the end, you will have this exploitation and go-to-market strategy phase. So it's different.
Yeah, and when you say it's a new project, it's including design. I suppose that of course the majority would be focused on the model-based methodology in order to facilitate this new design. But sometimes, but inevitably, it could also include like other tasks. Let's say maybe it's a like, for example, a wild example would be to design, let's say, the case of this new physical intelligent machine. And would that be part of this project, or would that be a task that should be outside of, let's say, the estimation, the effort estimation, etc.?
Ken, Ugo, would you like to?
Yeah. I think we can go for what's reasonable. Normally, we are not the reviewers, so we have these experts that are used to review these kind of projects hired in, and they will look at your project, and it's not that like kind of this funding is just for the model-based part, I think. So what we really want is innovation in terms of what comes out of this year project. And obviously, if you have some tasks that would like kind of require you to like kind of, it's not like kind of the majority of the project, but it's a smaller part of the project. But that's like kind of really essential for the like kind of the new cyber physical system that you are deploying in the market to be accomplished. If it is reasonable, I think this shouldn't be a cutoff point. What do you think? And do you want to make it more precise? Any better idea than this?
But I think I'll just speak to it slightly. So I think definitely we want to see some innovative products. So if model-based design is being used, clearly there's a stage at the end, like if you're building a physical prototype, the project's not, if it just designs a design in a model, it's not really a new product, it's just an idea, right? So definitely we can expect there'll be some tasks around that to actually produce some production. And as Hugo said, it's about what's reasonable. So one of the criteria is sort of essentially justification of resources, at least as we'd say in sort of in Britain. So you're essentially saying we need the following resources, this number of people to do the following. And there's a judgment there from the reviewers about whether this is within scope, but reasonable costs for these kind of things would definitely be covered. And I would say lessons learned, the ones that are reviewed highly for all the criteria were really clear about explaining why it was in scope, making the business idea very clear, that was easily understandable, justifying all the resources. So doing all of these is what led to those being selected, and that's something that people going forward can also just keep in mind about making sure you're explaining things clearly and you're answering the question as it's written in the application.
Okay, yeah, make great sense. That's all my question. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So Andrew, would you like to unmute yourself and ask us your questions?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, or at least I can.
Okay, great. I think my original question I think has kind of already been answered. It was so we are a recipient of both the pull and the experiment project grants, and I was wondering if that has an influence on the application for this Innovate grant.
Well, it sort of does, because the maximum amount of funding you can receive is an SME can receive is 100,000 euros. And of course, if you have been already selected for call to experiment, that funding will be taken into consideration. So the funding provided, of course, will be taken into consideration. And also, the HUBCAP will need to confirm if one of the companies that are members of the consortium applying to the Innovate call has already received funding from the two initiatives that I earlier presented. And those two initiatives is I4MS and Smart Anything Everywhere. So if you have already been funded by the call 2.1 experiment or one of the other two initiatives, that funding will be taken into consideration. Of course, you can apply to call 3 Innovate, but we will be checking the maximum funding available.
Okay, understood. And did I understand correctly that then the tool that would be used for this project would have to be different from the experiment project? Like the tool that we're providing?
Maybe I can chime in here.
Yes, Ugo, go ahead.
Yeah, I think in terms of the experiment itself, I don't think it was always the plan that we would use OpenCall1 to attract assets to the platform that indeed would then cascade towards open calls of kind of 2 and 3. So you could use the same. So you would be our strike 3, strike one of the potential ones. So you could be a winner of call 1, call 2, and call 3.
Okay.
So
I think the main thing would be to show why your new proposal was an experiment, why it was an Innovate rather than just a continuation of experiment. So
yes, exactly. I was going to say that.
There's more on some innovative, more concrete output, which the barrier is a bit lower for experiment, and obviously the money is lower as well.
Okay. Yep. Understood. Thanks.
Okay, so it's everything. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Andrew. Does anyone else have further questions? Alexander, hi.
Yes, hi. This is Alex from Bio Innovation. We are recipients of a pool pool grant. We are preparing together with other partners an application for this Innovate call. One question would be, actually there are multiple questions. One question would be, you put in one of the slides and a possibility that in a consortium of 3 SMEs, one is the asset provider and there are 2 users or adopters. Is there any, I don't know, requirement or differentiation between these users, 2 users, or what is your comment?
I would say no. We just sort of have a minimum that one should be a provider and one a user. So it kind of leaves the third one could be either. I think the main thing would be making clear in your application that the consortium makes sense and is sort of working together, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So this choice really should be driven by the idea and the business proposition.
Okay. So there is no, I don't know, no restriction here.
No, other than the sort of minimum and the total number of them. So. Okay.
So this leads to my second question. I have also been in contact with Katarina from F6S, and she has provided some answers, but I'm going to ask here also. So let's say we have our Innovate idea requires, let's say, a pilot testing in a premises of some, let's say, I don't know, an industry provider or something. somebody that has a premises. I'm tempted to say museum, but that's an institution anyway. Somewhere.
A different organization.
Yes, in an organization, yes. And what can we do here? I mean, can we or should we include it as a partner, or is it a question of, I don't know, some sort of subcontracting or?
So there's two options here. So there's two kind of answers. The HUBCAP program is financing micro, small and medium SMEs and MICAPs. And there's a slightly distinguished between these three types of SMEs, let's call it like that. And you can find this table differentiating each one in the guidelines provided by the European Commission in terms of SME definition. In your email, you said large corporation for the pilot, and I have answered if this large corporation is within the definition of mid-cap, which is a little bit a higher company than the small and medium enterprise. So if they can be within this mid-cap definition, I would suggest to add them as partners of the consortium. Although if they are too large or if they don't fit in the definition, they can also be part of subcontracting. And as I said in my second email, the rules, the European Commission rules for the H2020 proposals, they allow subcontracting, but they have a set of steps or rules for the subcontracting. So I send you the link. I don't know them by heart, but I can go into further details. So you have these two options. You can either add the third member as a partner of the consortium if he's within the scope of mid-cap or SME. But if it's not, then you can subcontract. But then you need to pay close attention to the article within the subcontracting under the H2020 projects. I don't know if this answers your question, Alexander.
Yes, thank you. So what or the key takeaway here is that it's better to be a partner, if possible.
Yes, if possible.
I'm not sure about
the
status. We need to check if it's
so
mid-cap or
mid-cap,
not.
yeah. So I think I send you the link, correct?
Yeah, the idea is that probably they will not, I don't know, they will not participate like in kind. They will need some sort of financing, smaller financing. So
yes, if they are a member of the consortium, you can allocate budget. You can.
Yes.
They will be financed in both ways. So if they are a member
yes.
of the consortium, they will have a specific budget allocated. And if you are subcontracting, of course, they will also receive, they will be paid for the subcontracting services.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Do you have any further questions?
Not at this moment, no.
Okay, perfect. Anyone else? More questions? Okay, so again, Changli, thank you. Could you share the subcontracting rules to all? Yes, of course. Let me see because I'm sharing the screen now. Let me see if I can access it and share it. Yes, I can. One second. Okay. I just shared the PDF with the rules. Okay, perfect. But again, as I was saying, so The European Commission rules allows subcontracting if it's extremely necessary for the implementation of the action. Although, however, there's a limitation part of the action that is not predefined, but core activities of the project should not be subcontracted. So the main idea regarding subcontracting is that the beneficiaries must have the appropriate resources to implement the project. So of course there is a margin for subcontracting, but please bear in mind that if you are applying with the project idea, the consortium members must have the skills and expertise to implement the project itself.
Yeah, I think you want to avoid having subcontracting on the critical path, but
exactly
a small amount of subcontracting to allow testing in a museum, let's say, as that was mentioned. There's a clear skill set that the consortia don't have and need from a third party. So if you write a clear justification and follow the rules in the PDF, that sort of common sense would say that that would be a sensible use of subcontracting.
Yes, thank you. So just that it makes sense. That's the idea.
Yeah, and you have to kind of, along with the rules, which is the natural legal basis, then there's the reviewers will be looking and have you justified the resources? This one sounds justifiable to me offhand. So yeah, I think that would be definitely something you could write.
Okay, thank you all. This really enlightens us. Yeah.
Okay, it's good to hear. If there are no further questions, I think we can conclude our Q&A webinar, our first Q&A webinar. Once more, feel free to contact us through info. Now I don't know how to say the word, info@hubcap.eu. You can also follow us on social media where we post news related to the open calls. We also share the links for the matchmaking events, Q&As. We also share the open call results. So we tend to keep you posted in all the project activities. So feel free to follow us to check and follow our main activities. So I would like to thank you all once more for participating.
Sorry, Katrina.
Sure, go ahead.
Just one more question. Regarding the differentiation between subcontracting and other necessary jobs. For example, if I find someone to for the prototyping to make like let's say 3D printing or I mean some tasks that needs to external resources to do, is that called subcontracting, or is just like what you purchase materials for this project?
If you are, unless you buy a machine for 3D printing, I think, which is actually like a hardware for the prototyping. But if you are contacting another SME that it's outside of the consortium for printing, then it's a subcontracting. This is my opinion, but of course my colleagues Ken and Ugo can.
Oh yes, certainly. Just I guess 3D printing is a slightly grey area because it's not a product that they're selling, so it is kind of a service. So that might wander a bit into.
Yeah, or maybe let's say if my application includes an app on mobile phone to control something, and if I need this expertise, some app developer just to create let's say a test app for me, and he's probably has an Imanzak or I mean like self-employed freelancer. Where does it fit?
So if the application is part or is an essential key feature or part of your project idea, then one of the members of the consortium should be the responsible partners for developing it to avoid subcontracting.
Yeah.
Self-employed people are eligible to be part as member of a consortium if their VAT is registered and it's valid by VIES. So of course we encourage SMEs for the consortium, but self-employed people with a valid VAT certified by the, I can write it here, VIES, it's eligible. So we are considering them eligible as well.
Yeah, I more mean like it's a non-essential module. For example, during the experiment or testing phase, there may be a test app.
So if it's a small part of the implementation action, I think you can subcontract. But again, I'm not fully aware of the rules on the link, so on the PDF I just shared. So my advice is to go, if you need something like this, please read careful the guidelines provided by the European Commission in terms of subcontracting rules.
Okay, yeah, good to know, just in case. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. It's okay, Chris. Thank you for joining us. So I don't know if my colleagues Ken and Ugo would like to say something before we close.
Well, thank you all for coming, and we hope to have you on board in the matchmaking session that is next week.
Yeah, thank you from me as well. Great to see interest, and thanks for the good questions. I'm sure they're very useful for others and anyone watching the video afterwards.
Okay, so thank you everyone. Have a nice rest of week.
You too, thanks.
Thanks.